Hello, 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 and welcome back, guys. I hope you guys are good and have had a nice lunch. For those of you that attended our 5 minute connections and meet our experts, I hope you found that useful. And I would highly encourage that if you haven't gone to the networking sessions, I mean, these speaks and these talks are fantastic. And obviously, we've got the amazing Cynthia, which I'll introduce in a minute. But actually, part of the value is you guys. I don't know how many you were there for the opening when I talked about the box and the guy sitting on the box and opening up the box and finding that pot of gold. That's kind of you guys, right? You guys are already an amazing resource. You guys have already really connected. You guys already got knowledge and expertise. So make sure you utilize those spaces on the lounge. We've got places where you can sit down and talk to each other on the networking, the speed networking. Please make sure you utilize that. Also, we've got all these experts that have given up their time to kind of support, not in a kind of patronizing way, but they've given up their time to want to share their expertise. So let's utilize them. And again, please make sure you go around and you tell everybody about these sessions and get them involved. Is there an issue? Hold on, Sharon, are you having an issue? Bear with me. Is anyone else having trouble? Sharon, can I just bring you up and tell me what troubles you're having? Cynthia, bear with us for a sec. I want to understand what troubles people are having so we can resolve them. And I'm also going to ask in a minute, so you guys start thinking, what is it that you most want out of this session, which is really helpful for me and Cynthia, particularly Cynthia, to kind of get her mind in the right place. So Sharon, turn on your camera as well if you can. Let's see your gorgeous face.
Hi, my camera has never been working, so but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah, no, this was having trouble with sound before, but it seems to be fine now. So, and I've tried many times with my camera, but it just gives me a thing saying you can't, I can't read my camera.
Oh, okay. Well, no problems. No problems, but we will. All right. Well, glad to hear
At
that it
least
was
I can
just
hear you now. Thank you.
you can hear, and that's the most important for. So, Sam, is that your issue too? Just give me a little thumbs up or something in chat so I know, because you said you had an issue. Clear for me too. Clear for me too. Is that clear for me too? Isn't clear that you can hear me wonderfully? No, they're clear for me too. Okay, right, cool. Oh, love that. Love that. So just like I said, just to re-emphasize, part of this exercise and why we've used and chosen this platform is because of the networking. And the networking opportunities we believe are kind of as close as you can match to in person. And obviously, because everybody's all over the world and different parts of the country, it was the most accessible way that we could bring you all together and have this conversation. So please, please, please utilize it. All right. That's that stuff done out of the way. Before we get started, as always, Lily, jump on stage and give us a quick whiz tour around for those who are just currently joining us, please.
Wow. Hello. Most of you here have been here already, but we're going to do it again because I love the sound of my own voice. So around the top bar, we have the schedule, which is where all our upcoming sessions are, all networking. And as you know, the lounge is open 24 hours a day until the 28th of September. So if you're hanging around between sessions and you think, I'd like to meet somebody, anybody, take a seat at a table and get to know somebody. Next to the schedule, we have the little paper icon, which is your newspaper. It is the feed for the entire festival. So like we use the chat in here, it's a chat, but it's for everywhere. So if you're sat at a table and you can see people online, but they're not joining you, throw your name out in the feed and say, I'm sitting at this table, come and join me. Next to that, you have the little people icon. This allows you to see everybody who is attending the festival. And also there's a button to see who's at the festival right now online. And what's great about the people section is that you have the option to DM them or book out 10 minutes in their calendar just for you. And Simone and I, even as admins, system admins, cannot control this. You can DM anybody, and that includes you, Cynthia. I apologize. So please do be responsible in how you message people. But that is there for you. And down the right hand side is our menu just for this session. So the chat, which we're all using already. Beneath that, if you've got the little QA bubble, if you have a question for Cythia, please post it in there. It just allows me to not have to scroll through the chat so that I can moderate your questions and make sure we can get you up on stage. You can see who's in. And then if Cythia refers to any resources, I will post them in the little pages icon, which is resources. And that will link back to the full resources tab for later. Anyone who missed this who wants to replay it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful, amazing. Thank you so much, Lily. Without further ado, let's jump into this. I know you guys are here to get some more advice in what in terms around getting an agent and how you sort that out. So what better person to do that? We have with us Cythia from Curtis Brown. We've had the pleasure of you talking to us before, haven't you? You came back.
That's right.
Yeah. A few years ago.
A bunch of years ago, absolutely.
A bunch of years ago,
somewhere in West London.
Well, yes, you did an in person. That's right. You came and did an in person a few years ago. It was one of our really popular sessions. So it's so good to have you come back and kind of offer some advice. And I can see we've had some questions already because people are biting at the drum. I will share the question in a second. Before we kind of get into it, do you want to talk about your work at Curtis Brown? What you do, what's your day job, the kind of everyday tasks? Actually, kind of explaining. I know most of us know, but what is an agent? Kind of your day-to-day role as an agent.
Sure. Hi guys. So I am an agent for screenwriters and directors at Curtis Brown, which is one of the biggest, oldest multi-service agencies actually in the world. In fact, we are currently celebrating our 125th year, which is quite major for a lit agency. We started off as a book agency. We still have a massive books division. We represent lots of authors, but of course, over the 125 years, we've completely diversified and developed our business. So we now represent screenwriters and directors, such as the division I work in. We also represent actors. We have an in-house production arm. We represent presenters, so sort of the full works. So I've been an agent at Curtis Brown now, so pushing almost 17 years at Curtis Brown. I've had my sort of entire career developed. I've grown up in the company. I started off as an intern back in 2008, then sort of moved up to working under a brilliant agent here called Amanda Davis, servicing her list of screenwriters and directors, and that's sort of where I learned everything. And then broke away and developed my own list, which is the list that I have now of wonderful writers and directors. And so it's a range of talent that I represent, sort of from the very new to the more established now. They were all very new when I first signed them, and I've sort of grown with them, so to speak. So I represent writers like Mickey Down and Conrad Kay, who have a terrific show currently airing actually in its third season on HBO and soon to come to the BBC called Industry. The likes of Tom Moran, another showrunner who has his own series called The Devil's Hour for Amazon. Filmmakers like Shola Amu of The Last Tree. Directors like Tim Mealance, who has worked across things like Peaky Blinders, The Responder for BBC. He's got Cillian Murphy's sort of next film. First film post winning the Oscar for Oppenheimer, which is actually the trailer's dropping today, sort of all over the internet, which is very exciting. And sort of newer writers like Yemi Oyefuwa, who's doing brilliant things on shows like Dreaming Whilst Black and Borders, to name but a few of her credits. So working really closely with these talents. And I guess what does that mean, working really closely with, and what does an agent do? And I guess in the UK, agents we kind of wear a few hats. The first and the obvious one is scouting and signing talent, and working with them to develop their career, to get them sort of from point A to B in the industry. So opening those doors, connecting them to our sort of address book of producers and studios, etc., getting their projects off the ground, whether it's something that they have cooked up themselves, something that they've developed and dreamt of themselves, and sort of housing it with a production company, or getting them work on existing projects. And we call that episodic work in the TV world. So, whether they're a director and wanting to direct an episode of Chaos or Dreaming Whilst Black, we'll connect those dots and get them those gigs. Or if they have dreamt up their own series or film, we'll find it at home, get it financed, get it set up, and then the next hat is doing the deal. So as agents, we are master negotiators and deal makers, we like to think. And yeah, just making sure that the client gets paid first and foremost, paid well, and has the, in terms of all of the other things that come alongside getting the fee, things like underlying rights and just making sure that they have a stake in the life of a project, and just foreseeing all the things that may come, off the back of making something successfully, and just making sure that everything is catered for. As it pertains to a deal, we negotiate all of that. And then I guess the other sort of part of it is cultivating all of that work and that sort of position, and parlaying it into their next opportunity, the next thing. So constantly looking forward and looking at what's next for the client and mapping out their journey alongside them. And advising, we're there to advise on sort of steps, career moves, what to do, who to work with, based on all of our, experience, knowledge, and of working with so many people in the industry. So yeah, so that is what an agent does.
That's essentially what an agent, and I love the way you named up all those names, and some of those names are really inspiring, people that we kind of really love and are really proud of in our community. In terms of, like, for a lot of people, like, trying to get work, you're often told that you need an agent. Why is it so important? Why is there a need for an agent, and why is it so important? Why do a lot of companies not want to work with people who are unagents? And I know a lot of you guys might not have this knowledge already, but I think it's important for us to revisit. I mean, can you kind of cultivate your career on your own, or is there, what's the advantage of having an agent before we get into how we get you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And now, whilst it is possible to have a perfectly healthy and brilliant career without an agent, I would say the use and the purpose of having an agent is we act as essentially, we're a trusted filter. So we have an agent is only ever as good as their taste and their judgment. Production companies and people that you will eventually be working with or hoping to have hire you are very aware of this, and have, long-standing relationships with agents, and have built up trust over the years. So it almost acts as a shortcut for when we then approach those production companies and say, hey, here's a writer, here's a director who is amazing. Check out their work, hire them for your project, whatever it is. They are more likely and quite likely to listen to our suggestion, and that would help in that process of getting the talent hired or getting their project off the ground. And that's how, that is, rightly or wrongly, how the industry works. It's based on trust, it's based on faith, it's based on referrals, it's based on somebody having an experience, or having experience working with someone and saying, work with this person's great. And I think it is down to, maybe it helps with cutting down time. Everyone's so busy, there's just not enough time. So if you've got someone that you trust that's sort of helping to kind of, lessen the time that you have to do investigating such a person, then you're going to be listening to them. So ultimately, we're there to kind of connect the dots and help sort of open those doors for a client, which the client could do on their own, but it would take a lot of time if you don't already have those connections, and if you don't already have that relationship. An agent comes inbuilt with all of those things.
And I think that also, we run a Breakthrough Leaders kind of a development program. One of the things that we often talk about, the importance of being your own agent. And I definitely know, if I'm negotiating stuff, it's always easier to have somebody have that negotiation on my behalf. It just feels less icky, and it just feels a lot. So
absolutely. Yeah, an agent also frees up time for the talent to do what they're supposed to be doing and what they do best, which is to create, and not have to worry about, negotiating and deal making. And also, sometimes negotiations can be uncomfortable, and they can be, you have to be aggressive when asking for more, when trying to sort of progress, the standing of the client. So, you almost want the agent to sort of be the bad guy. So it saves, it saves your sort of face almost, and your kind of preserves your standing with the production company. So that separation is really, really useful for the talent.
Okay. What I'm going to do is, there's a few questions that have come in, and guys, please put questions into chat. There's 2 that have come in. And obviously I'll get back to a conversation, but I want to make sure that we answer all the questions that people have. So I'm going to bring up Sam first. I'm going to invite Sam to come on stage and answer a question. It takes a couple of seconds, so please bear with us. But while she's doing, and we're organising that. Oh, here she has. She's appeared so quickly. Sam, do you want to ask your question? If you can, turn on your camera because we'd love to see your face. Yeah.
Hello. Oh God, my hair. Anyway.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah. So lovely to meet you, and thank you for bringing me up. I will be contacting you after this because I run a program called Regional Breakthrough Writers for Screen Skill and Dandy.
Great.
And one of the things, we have 9 amazing writers who are just breaking in. And one of the questions that we often get asked from them is, how do writers who have no major track record but are just trying to get into high-end TV, how do they attract an agent? Like, what things do they need to do, or how can they prepare themselves to find them?
I mean, that's a really good question. And yeah, it is admittedly the sort of the initial stage, right, before you have your first professional credit. It's hard to sort of stand out, to sort of legitimize yourself almost. And I would say the way sort of around that is kind of a couple of things. Firstly, have that incredible spec script. Have that piece of work that could be your calling card, you know. And sometimes, and I actually have signed some people, not lots of my clients, but there have been occasions where I've signed completely green writers who just have that brilliant script, because what that means is that's something that the agent can work with, can take to their, you know, to their contacts, their producers who are potential people to hire that new writer, etc., and sort of get that ball rolling. But that's something that they can then show to show that they're up to the job, they're up to task. Admittedly, that is, you know, sort of difficult. And I think the other sort of route, whilst also having that calling card, is to, you know, try and apply for the various schemes that are out there, things that run by maybe the BFI or BBC, all these kind of bodies that are recognizable, you know, keywords in the industry. So when you're sort of sending that email, that cover letter, that CV, and we're seeing these acronyms that we all know, BAFTA, BFI, BBC, whether it's a scheme or a competition or a course, Channel 4, these are all things that go, you know, help with that legitimizing and that filtering that I sort of mentioned just a minute ago about, you know, when I was saying why an agent. It's just these things that people can kind of relate to, and it just helps to bring them in to the world, the closed world of film and TV.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for asking a question. Pelish, can I ask you? You've got a question. Can I call you up on stage? I'll show your question whilst inviting you up to come. As a writer, Pelish will join us in a second. While he's doing that, as a writer, I was represented by your Curtis Brown colleague, the wonderful Caroline Sutton. Returning to professional life after a career break, I'm curious to get representation as a writer, documentary, and voice artist for TV, etc. Palace, do you want to? Are you in a position where you can turn on your cameras? How's your hair? Have you sorted out your hair? Tell us out.
Trying to switch on. There we go.
Yes. Do you want to ask your question? Fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, forgive me. It is a rather general question, but I guess 2 things that are distinctive about it. One, returning to working life after really quite a long absence as carer for dying parents and so on, and really finding everything bewildering. And B, adding to my skill set now. I really want to take the voice seriously, and there are so many different things, you know, that I have done in my career, and I'm just wondering, is it possible to get an agent who can represent me for all these things?
So the short answer is depends on what all these things comprise of and what all these things are. I'm assuming if you were represented by Carolina previously, you were represented as an author.
Yeah.
And therefore, but now you're sort of wanting to kind of return, but in the form of a filmmaker. and I think so basically it wouldn't be one agent representing you as an author and as a filmmaker and as etc. But I suppose there is a world where at an agency like Curtis Brown and a few others in the UK that are multi-service and that do have certain different divisions, you could potentially get an agent in, maybe a couple of the different divisions to represent your different interests. We do have clients that we represent as authors and as screenwriters and sometimes also as presenters and maybe as actors. But what I will say is it's tough if you're sort of meeting, say you've managed to catch the attention of an agent in one division, it's the onus isn't on them to then find you an agent or representation in the others. They sort of cannot promise you the same level of interest and enthusiasm from their colleagues, because that's sort of not how it works necessarily. But that's not to say, as I've already just said, that there are sort of different ways to do things. And there's also a world where you could be represented in one area by one agent and one agency, and in another area at another agency. That does frequently happen.
Does it make it more likely that you might get a foot in the door in another division of your agency? If I were represented already as a writer by one agent, can they, as it were, put in a good word?
It certainly helps, absolutely. Like if you're already in the building and you've got an agent championing you, and you're doing brilliant stuff already in one world, the chances are certainly a lot higher. Because that familiarity, that track record in one field is already there, it's existing. So of course, rather, that versus sort of coming in cold, absolutely, but it's not sort of a given.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Palish. Sharon, you've got a question. I'm going to show your question on stage, and I'm going to invite you to come and talk. I'm developing a small micro production company. I'm a Palish has raised his hand again. Okay, sorry, lots of stuff going on here, trying to understand this. All right, so I'm developing a small micro production company. I'm represented by producer by ITG. Do you entertain someone like me on your mailing list, or on your mailing list to have generals with your writers? I feel it's difficult if you're not a large indie. Sharon, you probably can articulate that a lot better than I can. Do you want to? Have you? And you're not able to turn on your camera, you said, yeah?
No, I'm afraid not. I've tried many times.
She's lying. It's her hair is messed up.
It's okay.
Hi, Cythia. I feel like I may have emailed you in the past when I've worked.
Yeah, you feel familiar.
I was at Kudos for a little while, but I'm a producer. I've just finished working on Doctor Who on that as producer, and I'm in this current climate. It feels like no better time for me to just crack on, develop my own slate, and work with writers. And so I'm going to ask more now than what I've got here, actually, which is that firstly, do you entertain someone like me? Sort of meeting some of your writers, like I'd love to meet Femi. There are other people I'd really love to meet, with the boys who did Industry as well. I saw them at Edinburgh, and it feels like that's not going to be accessible. I don't know if I'd be someone like me would be able to get on your mailing list to sort of say, come and have a journal. That's the first thing. And then now, because I'm here, I'm going to just ask it, which is, I do feel like just standard agreements and deals with writers has been gatekeeped over the part. There's been a lot of gatekeeping of that in the past. So it'd be good for someone like me to really understand how much is it going to be for me to sort of, to get a treatment out of someone, or to get a first script or something like that. I know obviously the fees for Pact and Beck too, but it'd still be, and so the Writers Guild, but it would still be interesting to get a general's overview. But yeah.
Okay, two really sort of brilliant questions. I'll answer the fee question first, because I think that's probably the sort of quickest. There is no kind of rate, sort of common rate. Each rate is sort of bespoke to each client, so it depends on their level, it depends on their precedent. But what I will say, and this actually links into the answer to the first question, is it kind of, particularly if and apologies if we've already said, but with your sort of your small company that you're setting up, is the focus film or television?
It's TV, but to be fair, I will do some film as well, just because of the nature of what's happening at the moment in the industry. And I've had some BFI contact as well. So there is at least one film project I've got as well.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is, so each client has their own quotes and their rate. But based on the project, the relationship, the passion, the need, the want to do the project, you know, everything is sort of negotiable. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
case by case, right? So I couldn't
Yeah.
sit here and go, oh, it's $20 billion for blah, 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 because actually, if they really want to do it, but you don't have $20 billion, they might, you know, there might be an agreement that can be sort of, you know, a conversation can be had. And now how that links to the answer to the first question is, in terms of getting onto the mailing lists, or, you know, setting up generals with writers and getting kick-started on that side of
Yeah.
things, it's all about relationships.
Mm.
So I would suggest sort of really kind of cultivating a rapport with agents, you know, getting them to know you, sitting down with them, you becoming real, someone that they can actually vouch for and suggest to clients to meet. And I think once you sort of really build up that web and that network, then inevitably and organically and naturally, when there's an appropriate client, a writer sort of taking generals, doing the rounds, you will 100% be on that list. And I know firsthand at Curtis Brown, we actively look for the exciting, newer, smaller indie companies, indie producers who are,
Right.
you know, who are the new people out there. That's exciting to us. We also have our relationships with the working titles and the kudoses and the whomevers, but we are also aware that, you know, for this business to remain fresh and for everything to kind of keep moving, you've got to promote, you've got to support the fresh and the new. So we are always looking for those new people, but I guess with newness comes unknown, you know, until we know those people, until we sit down with those people, we then can't sort of start adding you to the mix and to the list. So I would say that the first step is to become familiar with the agencies,
Yeah.
with the agents, and then inevitably the rest will follow.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. That was a great question. Cythia, obviously you mentioned and Sharon mentioned it's quite a tough time at the moment. What is the thing currently that's keeping you up at night?
So there's a mixture of things. Sort of post the big strike, the succession of strikes in the States a few years ago, the writer strike, the actor strike, and I guess before that even we had COVID, and then now the third sort of you know, horseman of the apocalypse, whatever, is the commissioning slowdown, which is a reaction to kind of all of those things. So with the commissioning slowdown, this is less work going around, and what that then means, and which is almost the flip side to what we saw during lockdown. So as a new writer in lockdown was probably the best ever time for a brand new writer, because you had production companies who had to down tools, shut up set, but they had all this commissioning money, right? And they had all this time and this personnel, and we had Zoom. So they were actively looking to develop lots and lots of projects. So we saw writers go from sort of baby brand new 0 to 60 over the course of lockdown, you know, developing entire careers, getting lots of commissions, and so coming out the other end of COVID as commissioned writers with credits, which was a wonderful time for, I mean, bar obviously the pandemic and the death and all of that, it was a wonderful time to develop as a writer. Now the flip side of that is fast forward to now, you've got, you know, the budgets are squeezed, all of, you know, the economy hasn't helped, there's and also just I think just too much was being made too quickly, so now you're finding a huge commissioning slowdown. So the production companies and the commissioners who were really gung-ho and excited about the brand new and taking those risks and putting money, you know, into developing newer careers are sort of becoming a bit more risk averse, a bit safer, and a bit sort of, you know, going for a list of people rather than sort of taking a bit of a risk. And it's just obviously the knock-on effect of that is just less work, less opportunities, less development, which is sad.
Does that impact, is that kind of, are you noticed, does that impact particularly on global majority of talent? Because I know particularly in TV, when slowdowns and stuff happen, that it becomes more increasingly difficult for us as a global majority, those from global majority backgrounds, they seem to historically be the first to feel the brunt. Are you noticing that in terms of representing talent forces?
I mean, absolutely. And it's whilst it's not sort of pointed, you know, agenda, it's inevitable because already there are less, if they're looking at one group and one level of writer in this slowdown, which is the showrunners, the names that they're familiar with, we were starting that journey of sort of trying to create more of those names from the global majority. And because now there are still currently less, inevitably, there are less that are going to be considered. So of course, and then of course, the sort of the newer writers that are on the journey to break through, to become the showrunners, they're getting caught up in that, production companies sort of not looking necessarily to the newer, to the lesser known. So of course it will have that knock-on effect. But that's why it calls for the likes of me and the likes of other people in my position to sort of keep fighting that good fight and keep reminding, people in, the positions of power and in production companies and commissioning that they absolutely should be hiring certain writers. And let's not forget, please, let's keep creating opportunities. And that's, the onus is on us to do this.
Definitely. And please, guys, keep your questions coming, I think that's such an important point. What does somebody need to do to get on your radar? Cythia, what are you kind of looking for?
I mean, that's a good question. And now, whilst there is no sort of hard and fast rule, there's no kind of template, I tend to look for my new clients. I spend a lot of time at film festivals. I spend a lot of time at TV series festivals. And admittedly, that is for, if you've got your debut feature or you're sort of maybe not from the UK and you've directed a show or written a show or something, internationally, that will catch my attention. But I'm aware that's not a catch-all for a lot of writers in the UK, right? But I do spend a lot of time scouting from there. Otherwise, it's that process of referrals, hearing, ear to the ground, who's hot. I also take part in a lot of, I'll sort of sit on a competition jury, so I can, new writing competitions, so I can get, those scripts and sort of give time of day to people who are submitting as brand new writers to competitions. But, again, it's a nice filtered environment because it's, fellow jury members and referrals and all of that. But yeah, so it's a mixture of competitions, referrals, word of mouth, and film festivals. And the stuff that speaks to me in all of those environments are people that are doing something just a little bit noisy, authentic. Authenticity goes a long way. And something to say. And I know these are all sort of things that everybody says, but there's a reason that everybody says it. If you've got a voice, but also if you're authentic and you're fresh and exciting, there's no way that I would ignore it. And I'm pretty sure none of my colleagues would either.
So one of the best ways to get to is obviously have somebody that is respected to kind of introduce you, maybe, or kind of endorse them, is a kind of good way, a good strategy.
Yeah. And that's why networking is everything in this industry, like networking, sort of just as much as possible, just building up your network and just having people to vouch and having people read your work so they can speak for you and speak on it.
Yeah, and as I said, guys, we've got all these networking opportunities and all these amazing people around, so please take full advantage of that. And like I suggest, please put your questions in and chat. With the kind of current climate, and obviously, like you're saying, kind of obviously we understand how people can get in front of you. Whatever advice can you give to writers, aspiring writers, and how they can be managing their time? Do you think that like digital technologies kind of are really useful for kind of sharing your work and getting more people out there? What advice would you give to people in this one, because it is quite tough?
Yeah, and I mean, absolutely. I think it would be completely wise to use all tools at your disposal, right? So if you've got access to sort of maybe making a short or making something sort of making a little project that shows who you are, what you've got to say, what you can do, I think it would be crazy not to. I've actually signed a few clients off the back of, one of them off the back of a 3-minute YouTube video.
Wow.
This was a little while back now, and they've gone on to create a show called Industry that I've mentioned. And another client actually a couple of years ago, who during lockdown, not a couple of years ago, lockdown feels like it was a couple of years ago, but whenever lockdown was, they shot a short film in their garage with lots of VFX for about €200. and it's incredible. It has all the magic of an Amblin movie, you know, of the Goonies or something like that. And that was enough for me to go, you're magical, let's work together. So if you've got, of course, whatever you've got at your disposal to sort of be creating and to be sort of just moving things forward, it would be crazy not to take that advantage.
Take full advantage of that. I'm interested with the guys listening, and how many of you guys are writers, and how many of you guys have already got agents? I'd be intrigued to see. Can we just get a little kind of signal in chat? Are you a writer that already has an agent? Just give me like maybe writer and a yes. It'd be just intriguing to hear, because I'm just it'd be good to know kind of where we're at. I know Warris said I'll start picking on people if you guys don't start talking to me. I will pick on you, Warris, because I know Warris. Can I call you up? Because I know you're a writer, you're a documentary no agent currently, but no, looking to get back in. Michelle, okay, wonderful. Warris, can I call you? Because I know that you are a writer, quite a seasoned writer, and started doing some episodes. You announced some good news the other day. I'm going to call you and hope. I know you can't respond, but I'm going to call you. Are you currently got an agent, and do you have any challenges? Currently, Lily's hasn't got an agent, and we've got a few that don't have an agent. What are some of the challenges that you have in terms of if you don't have an agent, finding an agent? What are some of the real life experiences you've had? Sorry, Warris, to call you on stage, but I hope you will humour me and work with me a little bit. Warris is coming onto stage while I'm reading some of them. I'm a writer. We've got quite a few writers in here. Trying to get right. So thank you, Warris, for humouring me and accommodating me. Have you currently got a Warris, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself? Because you just recently got you're doing you're quite a seasoned writer now and being out and about doing quite a lot of stuff. And do you have an agent at the moment?
Hey guys, hey Simone, Cythia, you're a legend out there, by the way.
Am I? Thank you.
You. So I am repped. I am a writer director for drama, and I'm repped by Casarotto Ramsey, was Eleanor Burns, actually. And so I've been out there as a television director with feature projects and television pitch decks and things like that. And I suppose I'm being represented for both. And sometimes I have to be honest, I wonder if that's effective to be in the room with two, I'm hustling as a TV director and I'm asking my agent to find work there, but then I'm also saying, can you find me work as a writer? And I think sometimes am I overburdening my agent and my agency in trying to represent me or define me in the industry, when actually is the employer getting a little confused, by what I am, because I'm trying to do both.
That's interesting. Yeah, is that an interesting?
Do you just sell yourself as one skill set, like directing, and work with your agent with that, or do you?
Sorry, I thought.
Yeah, sorry.
I think we are increasingly in an age where the need to sort of bracket oneself is actually completely unnecessary. I have countless clients on my list who routinely do switch between their directing hats or their writing hats, or they're show running and directing on one project. They're writing comedy, they're writing horror. There's no, we're all talking to the same people. We're all talking to the same people about various different people. So if as long as your work can speak for whatever it is you're putting yourself up for, and that's work, and that through line is clear, that that through line of brilliance at each of those different disciplines, and the agent is able to explain why you're being suggested as a director for this, or why you're being suggested to show run this or to write this, as long as that can be backed up by the work, then I think it's all to play for. And if anything, it's quite effectively increasing your chances to be employed. So yeah, I see nothing wrong.
They've just about being clear. And I like the idea, like you say, that there seems to be an opening up. And I think we're seeing that in TV as well, that you don't necessarily just have fixed, like you're not just necessarily, there's kind of John, it's a bit more fluid, and you're finding that in the work that you're doing as well, yeah?
It happens. Like even now on season 3 of Industry, the boys, so Mickey and Conrad, who are the showrunners, who created it, who write it, they have directed on season 3. So it's like, and so they are now also, and then they have been directors for a while. They directed a feature, but do you know what I mean? It's like, as long as it makes sense, and as long as you can see why you're putting your client up for, you know, maybe something that they haven't up until this moment been known for, as long as you can back it up with work, then it's all good.
Wonderful. We've got a question here from can I bring you up on stage as well? Oh, I've showing this question on stage, and I'm going to invite you to come up on stage to ask the question yourself. I'm interested in hearing about agent representation for digital content on screen. What stood out to you to take them on? What stood out to you to take them on? That's a really good question.
Yeah. So on both of those occasions, that, you know, both examples that I mentioned, they whilst both of them were small projects, one was a €200 short film, the other was a tiny character piece on YouTube. They were both almost a proof of concept for something bigger. So the 3-minute YouTube video, I then subsequently sold to NBC Universal for them to develop as a TV series with said client.
Wow.
And the short film, like I said, it has the magic of, you know, a Steven Spielberg movie. It just shows what these directors, these creators could do. So I think, to answer your question, is these sort of digital smaller pieces serve as almost like a proof of concept of their skill and their talent, but also kind of properties in itself that can then sort of, you know, be progressed onto something larger, a bigger project.
Does that answer your question? I'm going to call you because I'm getting stressed trying to pronounce your name. I'm dyslexic. I'm getting really stressed, and I don't want to disrespect you. I'm just getting really stressed. I'm getting sweaty out here. Is that all right? Am I allowed to call you Is that all right? I apologize if I'm over friendly. And did that answer your question? Are we there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear
Hello?
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, can hear you.
Are you still there? We can hear you. Oh,
you can hear me?
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
I think my camera's a bit slow as well.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, I go by On Calhoun, but
Okay.
Simone, I do understand the stress.
I do
sorry.
understand. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Everyone's names are stressing out all week. Sorry.
So I'm actually quite curious. So for me, I'm actually going down kind of like the digital route. So I've actually started my own YouTube channel, which is kind of like a vicey within the industry. But then my kind of like thing is to create like a mini series for it. And so I know that I've seen like some like people within the digital space being represented by Curtis Brown, being like and so you mentioned earlier about like, there was like a 3-minute short that you took on, and I'm quite curious why that 3-minute short stood out to you, and what you believe you saw in that person in order for you to take them on.
Yeah, so with the 3-minute shorts I just mentioned, I ended up consequently, selling it to NBC Universal for them to develop as a bigger TV series. And what sort of really stood out to myself and then on to NBC Universal was the writing, the character. It was a very, very simple short video of the writer actually also performing in character. And they created this character, this world, and it was almost like a snapshot, and you're left, you finish the piece wanting to know more, wanting to see more of that world. You're laughing, you're fully invested due to incredible writing, which was undeniable, even though it was, you know, a very, very sort of raw, sort of not guerrilla filmmaking, but certainly super low, like zero budget. But the writing was class and undeniable, and something that, you know, really shone through. And so that's what stood out in that particular piece, and that also transferred and translated to the bigger sort of proper development of it.
Wonderful. Does that answer?
I see. And it does, and I think it's more of the tied in. So did this person or the people that who went from the digital content to on screen, being at TV, or I don't know if there's other cases out there, maybe film, I'm not too sure. Did they also stick to digital content? Was Curtis Brown quite, you know, adamant for them to still do the two things that they were doing, or whether like let's kind of like do TV heavy? Was it just a gate through? I'm quite curious about that long-term relationship.
So in terms of their career and progression, the idea is, you know, all of that stuff and I'm aware, because also there were different projects, right, and different things. So I'm talking about a scripted comedy drama, right? But there's also maybe a world which I think what you might be sort of hinting at, which is maybe journalism, documentary, which are very different. And so in terms as it pertains to the types of clients I work with and that particular piece, which was a scripted comedy / drama, the idea is once they start working with an agent or the likes of me, we are then looking to kind of find something to help progress them in their career so they can start making a bit of money to eat and pay the bills, etc. And that usually translates as getting something commissioned for television, for a streamer, maybe a movie, that sort of thing. I don't think the sort of I would be giving my clients sort of poor advice if I was to say, yeah, stick with the YouTube, stick with making your self-funded content, because that's not really progression. They don't need me for that. They could do that themselves. They were doing that themselves. The whole point of an agent is to add value to the whole process, to progress them so they can sort of start to make a living out of this thing that they love to do. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a few more questions. I love this name. I love Natty Naqueen. Is it Natty Naqueen? I probably said that wrong, but I love the fact that you're Natty because I'm a Natty Dreadlocks as well. So I love that. I'm going to invite you on the stage. Show your question. Thanks. I hope that was helpful. How do you value a writer, or how do you assess what is a good writer and to be represented? I'm going to invite you on screen. Please, if you want to come or ignore the invitation, completely up to you. And maybe we can get swap with Natty with even. That'd be wonderful. Thanks, Lily. Natty, are you with us? Who's going to be coming with us soon? So just as we're waiting, how do you value a writer, or how do you assess, or how do you define
that's a very good question, and it's such a sort of individual, it's just down to individual taste. So each agent, everyone is different, everyone's looking for different things. So and whilst why that is important is if you are approaching, you're starting your journey to find an agent, and maybe you've approached a couple and you get knocked back, it does not mean that you're a bad writer. It just means that your work hasn't sort of resonated with that particular agent. Your work could absolutely resonate with someone else. So there's no kind of there's no real answer to that question, because what's other than so what a good writer is to one is completely different to another agent. That's just purely based on their taste, their judgment, what they know or what they perceive as something that they can sell or get out there, which can be completely different agent to agent.
But isn't there there must be a kind of I appreciate there's differences and nuances and tastes and stuff, but is there not a general description of what is considered?
Yeah, I would have thought so, as well. With I'm just seconding Simone.
Thank you, Natty. Come through, King.
I mean, there is, and that's why, like I say, the that sort of process that the industry follows of referrals and filters, that's why that's so sort of valued, because I think before you even get to a stage of where an agent is reading your work to see if the written work connects with them, they've already been sort of told that this person can actually write on that sort of base level, right? If you've been through sort of competitions or schemes and things, in order to be able to even apply to most of those things, you've got to have some level of being able to write, whatever that means. So then the next stage is, do I like the writing, which is completely based on, that individual thing.
What if somebody had I don't know, a great concept? He could write a script, or she could write a script, but their grammar wasn't the best. Is that judged?
Well, the thing is, as a writer, and particularly these days with technology and spell check and whatnot, there are steps. If you're aware that you're a storyteller, you've got you can write story. But your sort of downfall is the kind of the technical, the grammar, the whatever. You can put that through a machine and you can get that fixed, okay? But the thing that you can't, and that's arguable obviously with the AI conversations, but the thing that you technically can't conjure are the the idea and the exposition of it. The expression of it. The expression of it is the key bit, arguably more so than the idea. But that's a
yeah, that's a debate. That's a different debate.
So that I would have to then tailor it. What do you then look for as a writer? Like, if somebody was to come as a client to you, what would you specifically look for, like, to represent?
So I've sort of mentioned something that just feels fresh, and like that the writer has their what feels in the moment of reading that script, like their unique take on something. Like, I'm really getting a sense of they've got something to say and they're saying it in their own way, and something that in a way that I feel like I haven't sort of heard anyone sort of say it, at least within the last couple of years. And that usually gets my attention. How they create dialogue, how they build their characters in their world.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, the whole time I'm reading it and ideally enjoying it, I'm then like, who can I sell this to? Would this work in the current, all those sort of businessy things that an agent inevitably will be thinking about. So it's a mixture of those things.
Yeah, I pride myself on originality, and thank you, you know what I mean, for letting me know. If it was, I don't know if there was any possible way of me contacting you or DMing you.
You can contact, like we say, time and time with every session, you can contact via the platform. There's also on our online platform as well. There'll be contacts there, and we'll be sharing contacts. So thank you, Natty. That was amazing. I'm going to bring in somebody else because we're starting. Sorry, Natty. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue your chat, or continue. I didn't hear your question. Please put it in chat. Sharon, I'm going to call you up on stage again. You had a question. You had a question as well. Let me do that while we are reading your question. How many pieces of work would you need to see from a fledgling writer to consider taking them on? Would one good spec script be enough? And also, do you have an unsolicited window? Great question.
I would 100% prefer one phenomenal spec versus like a couple of okay samples. So yeah, it could just take that one brilliant piece. But yeah, one is enough. One can be enough.
One can be enough.
Right. I asked that question because in the past, and even so, I think there was always this thing of you've got to have like about 3 things, or as a body, as a slight body. And I was thinking, God, it's a lot for a writer to commit to.
What I will say is it's obviously also dependent on what the writer wants to be doing. So if you're, if maybe your background and you started off doing some theatre, but what you really want to do is write an episode of White Lotus on telly, but you've only got plays as your samples, which are brilliant plays. But sometimes, production companies, whilst they enjoy that play, they need to see that you can write 45-minute or 1-hour dramas. So what I would say is, depending on what you want to be doing, make sure you have a sample to show what you can do, which is, the exact same advice I said to someone earlier about, if you want to direct and write, and, have that sample, have the drama sample, have the feature sample, have the play. If those are areas that you want to do, just have the thing reflect that you can do the work.
Yeah. And then on the unsolicited window.
So I've said this in the past, but as in, when are you asking when's a good time to sort of email?
Or do you accept all year round?
So
or is there just
I think we used to say on the website that we don't, but that's just because of the sheer number, volumes of emails that we receive. Like, our IT guy came in to one of our meetings the other day, like looking really harassed and very concerned. He was like, our systems are about to collapse, because the sheer number of emails we get are just ridiculous. And obviously, as agents, we're really scatty and we never delete anything. So it's like the system's literally about to collapse any day. But yeah, so due to the sheer volume of emails we get, we sort of, I guess we used to, or I'm not sure about anymore, but we used to discourage unsolicited emails. But actually, we are, when I say we, I mean Curtis Brown are very much open to it, to a point where I think our email addresses are on the website. In terms of when, there's like no sort of, I guess common sense, and actually a little tip would be, and I've always said this in the past, but if you're going to cold email an agent, the best time would be on a Friday at like 11, when they've got their cup of tea and their little biscuits, and they're sort of looking forward to the weekend, and everything's feeling a bit hopeful and exciting and warm and nice. they're in a good mood, you know. So I would say maybe try and shoot them an email then, and they're probably they might even look at it, they might even read it in that moment, and they may respond. I'm not saying they will, but probably more likely than say Monday morning at 11 when it's
Thank you. Love that tip.
Really good to know.
Love that tip.
Yeah, those tips are amazing to know. Well, I know that we're kind of rounding up, but there was one. Boris was asked, which I thought was a really interesting question, quite an important question. As somebody else has put a question in chat as well, so I'll ask that. Reese has put a question. I will ask. Morris asks, what would be a reason for you to drop a client? And then I'm going to put Reese on stage.
I mean, you know what? No one ever goes into a partnership with a client with, you know, you think it's forever, right? It's a bit like a relationship. But sadly, you know, as the world, you know, as things happen, and I guess, you know, I think usually when it sort of starts to not go so well is when I think communication, you know, a breakdown in communication is, you know, the common denominator. And that's why I always say, you know, to people looking for agents and trying to understand the dynamic between a client and an agent is communication is key. Like you're a partnership. It's not just like, oh, I've got an agent now, I'm going to sit back and wait for the things to come in. You've got to keep talking to each other. You've got to keep sort of saying, you know, this is what I want to do. Or the agent needs to say, what about this? What about that? It has to be like a partnership. And I think when there's a disconnect, a breakdown of communication, that's usually the beginnings of quite a steady decline. Yeah. So communication is absolutely key. The connectivity.
Wonderful. We've got a Reese who is just recently joined us as our social media worker, social media manager. He's a writer as well. Bringing Reese up on stage. Go, Reese, and if you can turn on your camera so we can see your gorgeous face. Wonderful. Do you want to do the question yourself? Wonderful. Go ahead.
Yep.
Reese, we can hear you. Yeah, please.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Cythia. Yeah, I'm a big fan of your clients, Shola, Moo, and also Conrad, Mickey Down, who did Industry.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Industry. So I'm a screenwriter, and I've got like a quite versatile taste of like writing, so I write like loads of different genres, and I just wanted to know, for when sending emails for representation, would you recommend to brand myself as a writer for one genre or like multiple? Like, would that look what would be best recommended from your perspective?
I would say that's a good question, and it sort of speaks to the advice all along, which is play to your strengths, whatever showcases you the best, and whatever you've got to back it up. So if you've got samples for your work in, I think you said thriller, gritty crime, but you've also got a cracking sample for comedy, of course, put them both on and showcase that and send that. But if your sort of current sample, the thing that is the winner, the thing that's going to get you, you know, a commission from Netflix, and that is your comedy script, I would lead with that. Get yourself signed, get it sold, and then later on you can slip in. But what I really want to do is write an episode of Prime Suspect, you know, whatever, and you're already in, so they've got no choice but to listen to you and to get you in a writer's room for Prime freaking Suspect. So
that's the one. So just get in the door, man, and then when you get in the door, then you can kind of then say, I want to do this and so whatever you're strongest, where you're the strongest, kind of use that as the showboat and then be able to get into the door. Cythia, we've got around. I wanted to ask you quickly about AI and how that's impacting, and then I wanted to ask you 3 tips that you would give. I was remiss. You brought up AI, and I was like, I needed to ask you that. How are you seeing AI kind of impact in the work? Are you seeing it come up? Like I noticed, obviously I'm not asking for writers, but if I ask for somebody to send me a job application, I can always read, I can see AI, ChatGPTs, people writing me ChatGPT stuff all the time. How is it AI impacting on the work or the work that you're seeing, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of still unfolding. There are certainly lots of conversations happening, both here and in the States, and we're sort of all working quite closely together, discussing. I would say as a writer, and we actually had this conversation the other day, where quite a few writers are starting to use AI applications to help develop their pitches and pitch documents. and things. And I guess the sort of takeaway from that is just be a bit careful. Whilst it's a useful tool to help, you know, maybe sort of start off and get the ball rolling with an idea and things, but just be careful that you're not sort of using these third-party apps to then sort of become part of the foundation of something that becomes your baby and your idea that you then sell on, because that will open yourself up to potential sort of litigation further down the line, sort of more problems than necessary. But other than that, I guess there's just different ways of looking at it, and many sort of take on the sort of, it's useful, it can help sort of kickstart certain, you know, generate some ideas, but just sort of that balance between it not sort of, you know, not just soaking up kind of the humanity and the creativity of it, but also just potentially causing issues further down the line in terms of copyright and intellectual property.
I mean, the copyright and intellectual, I think sometimes people use AI and just assume that it's written it and that's it. I think you're right, it's a starting point, but that copyright conversation is a really important thing that people need to bear in mind. All right, as we've reached 4 o'clock, do you want to just give us 3 tips in terms of like your 3 best tips in terms of like attracting an agent, keeping an agent, you know, the kind of good stuff, what you would have learned, or what you would say to people that want to work with you?
Yeah, well, I guess the first is network. And by that, I literally mean just like stuff like this, attending festivals and talking to people, building your network, making friends with your peers, because you're all going to grow together and you're all going to be part of, you know, a gang, and it's all going to be great. So that's the first tip. Absolutely build your network. The second would be apply, send your work, get in touch. Don't be afraid. You know, if you think you're ready, just go for it. Like, time waits for no man. And then the third would be write well. That's it.
Write well, do well. And I thought you
Just
can't
do
say
it
better than that. But life is short, so go for it. You know, if you think you've got a script, write. Do you give feedback if somebody sends a script? Do you give feedback, or is it just kind of, it's a straight no? Do you have time?
No. I mean, I ain't got time.
You got no time. That's what I imagine. That's what I imagine. No,
I'm not gonna lie. But if I could, I mean, it depends. It's like sort of, it depends. But the chances are I'm not going to be able to sit and write coverage for every unsolicited script I get, because my poor clients would suffer and nobody would get any work. But yeah, but certainly reach out. There's no kind of test case. There's no one way of everything happening. Things can unfold in just so many different ways. But the key thing is to just reach out and just do it. Just do it.
Just bloody do it. Make it like Nike.
Bloody do it,
man. Just be like Nike and do it, and just get with it. Cythia, you've been amazing as always. We really appreciate. If any guys if you want to kind of go back and watch this session is available for until the 27th on the platform, and obviously it'll be on our online platform as well. As we are posting everything. Just a few reminders. I've been told by Lily, I've got a few reminders to give you guys. Our next session coming up, Lily, actually come up on stage, because I don't remember what time our next session is coming up, but we have a next session coming up, which is with a gentleman called Maxwell D, who is a musician and has recently started a music library, and talking about the importance of music in your content and how you can use music effectively. And he's also looking for producers and musicians to join his music library. Lily, what time is that on? That's on soon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's from 5 until 6. So you've got 1 hour break before we're back in.
1 hour break to grab some food.
You may or may not know Maxwell D. He's not just a musician. He is garage superstar from the 2000s, Maxwell D.
So sorry. I understood. I didn't give him his flowers properly. Maxwell D. When he comes in, I'll be like, oh my God, I'll be fangirling when I see him. Also, just to remind you and to pick up on what Cythia says, we have, and I'm going to say it one more time, we have network spaces all over this place. And as Lily said, the networking lounges are open throughout the whole duration of the festival. Lily sits there. She doesn't sleep. She has like little matchsticks in her eyes that keeps her open, and she sits there all night just watching. So please, no, I'm teasing, but please make sure you utilize the networking spaces. That's why we've got that. Oh, is that me ringing Lily? I apologize, Lily. I'm ringing you while I'm holding your phone on my hand. Yeah, but networking spaces, they're really important for you to utilize. And I think, like Cythia said, you can't underestimate the power of the network. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who that person's going to be. You never know where the journey is. So network. Big believer, network equals your net worth. As most of you guys would have known, or I hope you know, we recently announced a content fund. Lily, is the details up in resources?
Yes,
Oh,
there. It's
right.
called the TV Collective Content Fund, and it takes you straight to the webpage where you can sign up and learn all about it.
And you can register, learn all about it on the 27th. So we're organizing. Sorry, Cynthia, if you want to dip out, you can. I'm just saying my goodbyes.
Thanks, guys. That was so well.
Fantastic, wonderful. Thank you so much. Cynthia. We'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Lots of love. Just very quickly. So we have launched a content fund. Like I said, it's a partner. It's inspired by a partner. The idea that we all maybe take Cynthia and put her backstage, so then Cynthia can leave if she wants to. Lily, please, if you wouldn't mind. Cynthia's while she's still there, so she can push off if she wants to. Sorry, as I was saying, so we've launched a content fund. We're working with a company called Be Ethical. And they run a charity lottery. And what that means is every month we will subscribe to this lottery. There are chances every month to win £25,000 if you're a subscriber. But more importantly, the proceeds of this lottery, we're going to pull together and use to support people with development and production ideas and needs. Please, you need to be in it to win it. You can sign up. Lily's got a tab in our resources page which will give you more information and to get you to sign up. On the 27th of September, we are going to do our own personal lottery launch. So how it works, Be Ethical looks after all the prize monies and they do their monthly draws. But TV Collective is going to do its first monthly draw on the 27th of September. Sorry, I keep saying February for some reason. 27th of September, where one of you lucky festival attendees has a chance of winning £5,000. So you've got to be in that to win it. And then lastly, our podcast, make sure if you haven't listened to our podcast, you should. We are speaking to Marcus Ryder a little later on, who is going to be talking about his work at the film and TV charity. And those guys have got lots of money to give away at the moment. So he'll be in conversation about how TV and charity can support your career and also fund any ideas that you've got. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in an hour. If you want, please feel free to hang out in the lounge and continue networking with each other. Oh, and then lastly, we've got a big one, the International Networking Forum that is happening on Thursday, where we've got attendees from various parts of the world. Sharon, it'll be a good one. We've got a few people from our Barbados. I was with Sharon in Barbados very recently on a content creators forum. So we've got a few of those guys coming. We've got a few guys coming in from LA, from New York, from the States. If you have content people in your networks, invite them along. This only works with all of us in the conversation. So, make sure you invite as many people to get involved, getting part of the conversation. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. I will see you guys in an hour. I'm going to go and have some dinner. So I'll see you guys in an hour. And we've got Maxwell D, Superstar Garage. By the time I come back, I'm going to be gassed about who he is, right? So Superstar Garage producer coming to talk to us about music and content and the music library that he's building and how you guys can all access. Thank you so much and see you guys soon. Lots of love.
Take care, everybody.